timestamp. Man, so this summer was really incredible as far as sports goes, as far as particularly soccer goes. Um, so many tournaments. Started out with the Nations League. Rest in peace to Diogo Jota from Portugal. He was part of the Portuguese team that won the Nations League this summer over Spain. Four teams participated, and I want to say Portugal, Germany, Spain, and France were the four participants. And for the most part, those are the sides that are going to end up participating in the World Cup next year. And so it was really a good show of those countries' form, because those countries are normally in the mix as far as competing for a World Cup title. So, man, that's coming up next year here in the U.S., Canada, Mexico. So, wow, what a time to be a fan of sports and a fan of soccer. So that's going on. That went on. And then you had the Club World Cup, which was here in the United States, and it came at a great time, because normally if you're just into basketball, if you're into football, there could be like some lull periods throughout the year, normally from like June to August, September. There's usually only a few sporting events that you'll really tune into. For me personally, I like tennis, so I watch that. The MLS has become really, really interesting in the last few years. There's always been stars that have come to the United States to play, but wow, just having within the last few years, Lionel Messi come here, Luis Suarez, Sergio Busquets, Jordi Alba, now Thomas Mueller's going to the Whitecaps in Vancouver. There was Olivier Giroud, who played in LA. I think he's now leaving. So many stars throughout the years, but that's all like seemingly, led to now where the MLS is, quality-wise, I wouldn't say it's right there with, the Premier League in England or like La Liga in Spain, but it's definitely improving to a point where you got to recognize that if you're a top talent in the world, no matter where you are in your career, you might want to consider playing in the United States. And that's really wild to think about. But at the same time, the United States has great athletes. It's just a matter of just whether or not they tap into soccer or something else, or, all the variables. So, with all that going on, with the Club World Cup going on, several teams participated. You had, PSG, who won the Champions League this past year over Inter Milan from Italy. And so both of them participated in the Club World Cup, as did Real Madrid, Bayern Munich, PSG, Chelsea in England, Man City in England. And then, the real surprises for a lot of casuals like me was really seeing how the clubs from other parts of the world really came in and competed well, particularly the clubs from Saudi Arabia, as well as the clubs from Brazil. and Argentina as well. They had their moments. And so just seeing Brazilian side get to semifinals, I want to say it was Fluminense from Brazil. They got to semifinals and played Chelsea. Chelsea ended up winning the whole thing. And PSG, looking like really the juggernaut the whole tournament until they played Chelsea. PSG took down Real Madrid, several other clubs, but all the major clubs really look good. Bayern Munich, Man City, Real Madrid, PSG. If you were watching their performances the whole tournament, you could take away something positive outside of not winning the whole thing. And so really builds up to a really nice start to the English side of the soccer calendar, which is going to pick up here in a few weeks here in August. And so just a few major storylines heading into the year, particularly when you look at the Premier League, is can Chelsea capitalize off what they did in the Club World Cup and be a formidable force in the Premier League, as well as I don't know what the qualification scenarios are for the various teams in England, because it can be variable. You could have more or less a few of the same teams, but there could be a few teams that shift here and there. But if Chelsea's qualified for Champions League, how formidable they could be there as well. I have a feeling that Man City's qualified for the Champions League, and Man City looked like a really good team even in the summer. And so it'd be interesting to see how they build towards competing domestically and continentally in the Champions League. Liverpool, of course, you got to watch out for them. They're very much going to be in the hunt, or should be in the hunt. There's several other teams in the Premier League to check out. I know I follow Real Madrid heavily, and it's possible that Rodrigo from Real Madrid may end up in England at some point, just depending on how just the lineups develop throughout the year. Real Madrid has a new coach, and Xabi Alonso, former player, midfielder, and so it's going to be interesting to see what sort of philosophy he has and what sort of formations he puts into place. He has a challenge because he has a lot of attacking players, a lot of midfielders who can press up and play in the attack while also dropping back into the midfield and helping with holding ball, staying on possession, and sort of neutralizing the attack before it gets too far upfield. And so that's going to be interesting to see how Xabi Alonso puts all of that into play. He has dynamic players who can excel in space on the wings and attacking and creating goal scoring opportunities, like Vinny, Mbappe, of course. But some players also emerged over the summer, like Gonzalo Garcia. Obviously Arda Güler is one of those midfielders who's going to step in and kind of fill the void of with Luka Modric leaving. It's going to be interesting to see what takes hold in the midfield. Obviously, there's some solids like Valverde, Bellingham, Tchouaméni. I think should be figured prominently in the lineups, because he's a great player from box to box, defensive box to offensive box. He could score, but he could also defend very, very well. And so it's going to be interesting to see how all of that blends in. And the new additions, Dean Hudson, the defender, Trent Alexander-Arnold, another defender, both look really good in the Club World Cup. So it's going to be fascinating. But beyond that, Mbappe switched from number 9 with Real Madrid to number 10. And, that matches his French national team number. And so, who's going to have more of an impact for their club? Kylian Mbappe or Lamine Yamal from Barcelona, the player who's going to be on the short list for Player of the Year internationally, the Ballon d'Or. And so it's going to be interesting to see what sort of form he brings into the year. I know Barcelona added Marcus Rashford from England, and obviously Rafinha, Lewandowski. The list goes on with Barcelona. They're gonna be formidable. They were semifinalists in the Champions League last year, and so they have to be feeling like they're gonna be in the mix for the Champions League this year. And you always got to watch out for Atletico Madrid. They're the third Spanish team that is usually in the hunt domestically and in Champions League, but they don't get as much attention as Real Madrid, Barcelona. And so it'll be interesting to see how they play, as well as other teams in Spain, because it's usually variable. You're going to get those top 3, and then a lot of variable. In England, there's going to be a lot of competition from the 6th best team on to like the 15th best team and beyond. But for the most part, the top 5 or 4 are going to shift in order. And Spain could be like that too, but just with 3 teams, so at least recently. So it'll be interesting to see if there's going to be any parity that emerges, because players are emerging, not just for the major clubs, but for other clubs. Nico Williams, who plays for Spain internationally, he plays for, I think, Athletic Club, which isn't one of the 3 best teams in Spain. So players like that emerge all over the place, and so it'll be interesting to see who emerges in Spain and who dominates in Spain. And in France, the question is PSG a juggernaut? They've always been somewhat dominant domestically, but now they finally captured that Champions League, so they can say, we're the best team, at least in Europe, but they'll normally dominate domestically and be in the Champions League. So it's just, now that they've actually won the Champions League, can they be consistent enough to where, now you could really count on them to compete in the same way, Real Madrid competes, or like, Barcelona or Man City recently, clubs like that, Bayern Munich, and so, can PSG be that consistent team? And then who emerges elsewhere? I know there's a lot of teams both in England and Spain who can emerge and compete with anybody, but France has a few of those teams. I think Paul Pogba just signed with Monaco. I don't know if Monaco competes in Liga in France or elsewhere, but maybe they emerge as a Champions League threat. But beyond that, who emerges in Germany? I know Bayern Munich normally is a class in Germany. Borussia Dortmund was interesting. They had a good run in the Club World Cup. Interestingly, Jude Bellingham's younger brother plays for Dortmund, and he had some nice moments in the Club World Cup. So beyond those 2 teams, who emerges in Germany that could be a threat? Who emerges in Portugal? I know FC Porto participated in the Club World Cup, I think. They're normally a team that, tends to have a competing team that, at least qualifies for a Champions League here and there. So we'll see who emerges there in Portugal, amongst the teams that already qualified, who does well. And then obviously Serie A. Serie A is so variable. You can't really get a sense year to year who's going to dominate there. A few years ago it was Napoli. Now it appears that it's Inter Milan. And AC Milan just signed Luka Modric from Real Madrid. And so it'll be interesting to see what sort of impact he has on a historically great club in AC Milan. So, who emerges elsewhere in Europe beyond the usual suspects. That'd be interesting to watch. I'll be tapped in somewhat here stateside. It'd be interesting to see what sort of quality soccer we get in the lead up to the World Cup next year. Till then, see ya.